Hi, I'm Mark Menendez. Thanks for joining me. Today I'll be talking about color. I want to take you back to when you learned about color for the first time. Then I want to take you forward where you can master color and learn how to mix any color you desire without any trouble. You know, colors are around us everywhere. As I have on this table, I have all these bright colored objects here, and that's usually what we start with, you know. They kind of give us this kind of stuff early on, all these bright colors for kids. But you know, when you're going to start art, it gets kind of complicated. That's why I want to go back to where you began. Remember these? And how about the green tree leaves that you put on there? You use that bright green crayon all the time. We're going to learn about how to get the exact color. And if you look behind me, you'll see that there's millions of colors to choose from, not just these 8. So one of the things that I'd like to do is to get you to get beyond these limitations and to learn how to use color, especially what's available from your art materials store. Because when you get there, if you're just beginning to mix colors, it can be quite confusing. So I want to help you through that. So, for instance, here's a yellow right here, and I'm going to lay it right at the top of the wheel like we are starting a wheel here. I want to show you these relationships between these colors. Now I just squeezed that tube directly onto this paper right here. And if you look around this cap here, you're going to see a buildup of yellow. If you do that, you're going to get a lot of paint gathering at the cap. What's probably better is to open your tube and squeeze it a little bit and take what's called a painting knife or a palette knife and just squeeze out a little bit, and you can actually cut it off and lay it down, as you can see. And that's a lot neater than just giving it a squeeze. Now obviously from my tubes of paint, I just squeeze it directly on the palette, but I'm trying to save you a little trouble. So I just put a yellow-green down there. As I explained before, when you mix a primary hue and a secondary hue, I'm doing it again, a secondary hue, you get a tertiary hue. And you can see how that yellow-green is halfway between those two colors. And that's the way I want you to think about it. So in those days, they would use a lot of the earth tones. Now there's generally 2 types that you'll find at the store. And by the way, you won't see the earth tones on the color wheel at all. Not on this side. They're not hues. They are actually tones, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. There are many earth tones that are available. We talked about ochre. You can find yellow ochre, which is a beautiful, bright, mustardy color, kind of like the kind of mustard that's stone ground. And then you have burnt sienna, which is a very reddish earth tone. And you have burnt umber, which is a very dark chocolate brown. Of course, I like dark chocolate better than milk chocolate. So those are your 3 basic earth tones that a lot of people use. Now, let's talk about the term burnt. What does that mean? Well, the pigments are also available in tubes that say raw on them. And what that means is that they have not been actually toasted. They would actually take the soil and put it in an oven and darken it, but it also would bring out the reds in that pigment as well. So for instance, raw sienna is a little bit more, in fact, it's almost like yellow ochre. Kind of looks like this right here. I'm going to actually mix yellow ochre and burnt umber together, and it will replicate raw sienna. Kind of looks like that. So that's raw sienna, and it would be right here with the burnt sienna. So when they toast it, it actually gives it a reddish appearance to it. All right, so I've got the painting developed up with the values now. You can see highlight, light, shadow, deep shadow. So this is the way a painting would be prepared in the Renaissance in order to put the color over it now. So I'm going to start with a medium, which is made up usually of turpentine and varnish and linseed oil. And then the artist would take perhaps an earth tone. We talked about earlier how the earth tones were so popular during the Renaissance. I'm going to add a little bit of this green. This is going to be a substitute for the green they might have used in that time. I'm taking this and making it transparent with the glaze and putting it over the shadowy areas here on the face. So the dark that's already underneath it is showing through the transparent oil color that I'm laying over it. So without really having to build this up with tones that I have to mix every single tone for, the lights and the darks that are already there because of the grisaille underpainting is giving this portrait already a sense of form, and we're just colorizing it actually. But within light and shadow, you have two accents. In the light region, you have highlight. In the shadow part, you have deep shadow. I always like starting with the darker colors first because it tends to give more punch to the form. So by adding more of the sap green to the permanent rose, I'm now going to put a darker shadow on the apple. Here's something you need to remember. The darkest part of the shadow is always closest to the light. It's a good thing to remember when you're creating form. Now when I mix that sap green and that permanent rose together, yellow and blue make green and red, so we have three primary colors. Whenever you get those three primaries together in equality, it turns to mud. It's almost identical to burnt umber. If I were to put burnt umber on here, you wouldn't hardly notice the difference.